Jewish Community Relations Council of St. Louis, we call it the JCRC, works with partners in faith, ethnic, and civic groups for the benefit of all. We're honored to stand with our faith partners today to advocate for our immigrants and immigration. And today we recognize that unless we were Native Americans, at some point each of our families were immigrants to this wonderful country. I would like to thank the Interfaith Committee on Latin America for co-sponsoring today's program, Central Reform Congregation for hosting, and Gabriella Geller, the JCRC brand new, 1 month only senior policy associate, who helped bring our faith voices together this afternoon. And a special thank you to all of you who've chosen to come today for your support and your future action. It's my pleasure now to introduce Maharat Rory Pickernese. She's the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of St. Louis, and she's beloved and respected by all of us who know her. As an aside, for those of us not in the know, Maharat is the title equivalent to rabbi for women in the Orthodox Jewish community. Maharat?
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We stand together today because for so many of us here, America has been a country of refuge. A place where we, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents came to escape persecution, to find freedom from oppression, to flee from hunger and poverty, to avoid violence and war, to build a better life. As a Jewish community, we have a long history as refugees. Countless countries where we were deemed unwelcome because of fear, because of hatred, because of violence. We were forced to leave our homes and begin anew, our status constantly in flux, and our fate always in question. This week, the Jewish community will celebrate the holiday of Purim, the holiday in which we will read from the biblical book of Esther, yet another story in which the Jewish community was persecuted because we were different. It's a story in which a man of influence actively seeks to harm the nation, to destroy the nation, to wipe out all remnants and memories of our people because of our distinctness. It's a story in which those in power choose to remain ignorant, to disregard the plight of those around them, and through laziness, indifference, and neglect, allow for the suffering and abuse of an entire group of people, purely because of the circumstances to which they were born. And it's a story of mighty voices within the community who take matters into their own hands, who stand up to those in power, who refuse to be silenced. Perhaps what's most interesting about the book of Esther is that it's the only book in the Bible that does not include the name of God. Like the name Esther, God is Hester, God is hidden throughout the book. The story of Esther is not a story of God intervening in our world, with signs and wonders, with plagues and with miracles, but it's a story of people who stand up and change the course of history. We're not here today to pray that God should come to intervene on behalf of dreamers, because God is already here, waiting for us, waiting for humans to fix what is completely within our capacity to fix. And so, I invite you all to join me in prayer. We pray to the source of all creation, the source of life and the source of love. Grant wisdom, courage, and strength to the elected leaders of our great country. Help them to open their eyes to the countless people around us, standing up demanding reforms. Help them to open their ears to the voices of the dreamers who are telling their truth. And help them to open their hearts to the pain of so many whose futures are unclear. We pray for our faith communities that we have the bravery and the fortitude to maintain moral leadership and to provide the necessary support for our immigrant communities. We pray for our dreamers, for their resilience, their audacity, for their heroism, for their future. May we be able to follow in their leadership. May we amplify their efforts, and may they guide us all to a better world. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Maharat Rory. My name is Gabriella Geller, and I am the Senior Policy Associate at the JCRC. So first, let's clear something up. We're not really here about DACA. We're not here about DACA because DACA isn't enough. DACA was always designed to be temporary. It never provided a pathway to citizenship, which only Congress can legislate. And what we've seen over the last few months with the Trump administration announcing to end DACA, a plan only recently paused from going into full effect by 2 federal injunctions, DACA's temporary nature makes it vulnerable. Now, nearly 80% of the American people support giving dreamers the chance to stay permanently in the United States. So if the overwhelming majority of the American people want Congress to pass a permanent solution for the dreamers, then why are we here? Unfortunately, legislators can't seem to agree on anything else when it comes to the immigration debate. And instead of passing a Clean Dream Act or a similar legislation that would focus solely on addressing the dreamers, many elected officials are using these young people's futures as a bargaining chip to pass other elements of an anti-immigrant agenda. The faith community is united as we call on Congress to provide a path to citizenship for young immigrants brought here as children. And we simultaneously affirm that America is and always will be a nation of immigrants. So the futures of the dreamers will not be won on the backs of their parents, of their families, or the fundamental way in which we welcome people to this country. We reject legislative ultimatums that separate families, that drastically cut legal immigration, undermine asylum access, or exacerbate the suffering of border communities and migrants. Currently, a U.S. citizen can petition for a green card for their spouses, children, siblings, and parents. Some would like to change the law to eliminate green card programs for a family other than spouses and minor children. We reject this attempt to redefine nuclear family because we know that siblings, adult children, and adult parents are all critical members of the family. Likewise, we oppose any attempt to drastically cut legal immigration by eliminating the diversity visa lottery program or making it more difficult for those fleeing violence and persecution to apply for asylum in this country. Lastly, while every country has the right to secure their borders, unchecked border enforcement policies have been devastating to border communities. Effective enforcement can only be accomplished as part of a comprehensive reform that balances security standards with basic dignity and the protection of human and civil rights. So any discussion on border security measures must be done in full consultation with the border communities themselves. It is worth noting that while Congress has for decades failed to pass comprehensive immigration reform, they have found the time to steadily increase funding for border security from $1.5 billion in 2005 to $3.8 billion in fiscal year 2015. It is past time to address the other side of reform, and it is unacceptable to make the future of the dreamers contingent upon additional billions in border security. Fortunately, we all have a voice in this fight, and Sarah John from the Interfaith Committee on Latin America is going to talk to us a little bit later about what we can do to make a difference, how we can make sure that these principles are upheld. Now I'm honored to introduce Rigo, who is an advocate for Missouri Dreamers.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say to all of you here, thank you for having me. I don't have this every day. I have 3 mics now. I just left my house about 25 minutes ago. Sorry for being late. When I got to my house, I opened the door. There's 3 letters letters on the ground. One of them was DACA. I reapplied a few months ago, and luckily after the judge's court decision, it allowed me to go ahead and reapply. Prior to that, I was unsure. Now, I'm still unsure. Just like you mentioned, it's not enough. It only provides me 2 years, and then what? What do I do? Throw it away? I can't. A selfless act done by my parents, and what will it be? Worthless. I can't do that. I have to push for everything they have done, because they've done it for me. I can't be selfish. I need to let them down. I need to keep living. And that is the reason that I am a part of No Dreamers. We're a small organization, or should I call it group, here in St. Louis. We work with a group in Kansas. They're actually an organization. And then we work with United We Dream, which is on a national level. We have gone to DC, and all of these different things that we've been doing for the past couple of months, actually almost 7 months now, we've been very busy. Because every day, there's people who we know who are affected. There's people who we don't know who are affected. And I can't keep allowing that. It might not be my friend that was dragged on his way to work in the morning, but it was someone else's friend. And I know what that feels like to lose a friend. You don't know whose family that was. What if they were all the hope they had? What if they were the only stable income in that family? That is why I want more than DACA. DACA doesn't solve my issues. Thank you.
Father Carl Shovel, pastor of St. John the Baptist Parish in South St. Louis City in the Bevo neighborhood. And on my church campus is St. Francis Community Services, which is a Catholic Charities outreach center that does wonderful service to the Latino community of the neighborhood. And so on behalf of Archbishop Carlson and the Archdiocese of St. Louis, I'm honored to be here today to show our support for our immigrant sisters and brothers, most particularly our Dreamers. As Catholics and faithful citizens, we express our oneness with the Dreamers and their families. From our faith principles and love for our nation, we maintain the importance of family life. Strengthening families is to strengthen our communities, which in turn will strengthen our nation. While we are pleased with the Supreme Court's decision today to not hear the government's appeals, we know that we can't be complacent. We encourage all Catholics and citizens of goodwill to contact your congressional representatives and to convey the urgent need to pass legislation creating a path to citizenship for our Dreamers. In creating this path to citizenship, we acknowledge the valuable contributions of the Dreamers to the greatness of our nation and to safeguard the unity of their families. We convey our prayers, our love, and our support to the Dreamers and their families. And we are one with you in securing a path to citizenship, maintaining the unity of your families. May our support and labors to foster a path to citizenship help to relieve your present fears and anxieties. We also convey to the President and all the members of the Congress our prayers in your collaboration and deliberations to serve this common good, the good of the Dreamers, and to keep them united with their families. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reverend Roger Burton. I'm the pastor of the Northside Missionary Baptist Church. I'm also a member of the Ecumenical Leadership Council, for which I'm the vice president. We also have one of our charter members here with us today. I want to acknowledge her. appreciate this opportunity to say something. I'm going to speak from prepared remarks. I mean, you might not have known about this, but just recently, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service is tasked with seeing the lawful immigration to the United States. Their mission statement was, the USCIS secures America's promise as a nation of immigrants. That statement by an agency whose very existence is to help immigrants was recently stripped out of its mission statement by this administration. As a Christian, I'm embarrassed, sad to say, that this policy and other divisive and merciless policies are finally embraced by many evangelical brothers and sisters whose theology declares rigorous adherence to Scripture. From Exodus to Deuteronomy, from the Hebrew Bible to the Christian Bible, there is unequivocal direction to God's people to love and be just with the immigrant. As a child of ancestors who came here by forced immigration, and I will say many times when African Americans hear we are a nation of immigrants, they kind of pause and shake their heads. And we built this nation for free. And to see the nightmare inflicted on these dreamers, I just could not stand by and not say anything. These children of parents whose desires were for better for their progeny have done what America has asked. They've gotten educated, they worked hard, they served, and they contributed. Now, due to the politics of religious hypocrites, xenophobes, closet anti-Semites, and undiagnosed racists, they've made folks who would otherwise be stars in the American tapestry chess pieces in political theater, with their futures completely uncertain, as we heard here today. America must be whom we declare ourselves to be. We must live up to the words on the Statue of Liberty and the former words of the USCIS mission statement. We, in doing so, weave and tighten the quilt of American identity. To do otherwise is to mar who we are and who we have finally become. Don't let the dreamers dream die in their nightmare. Secure their future and all immigrants' future today. Thank you.
Sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, America today is at a crossroads. It is at a crossroads of what this future is going to be like. Are we going to be a nation that stands for the values that brought all of our families here today? Are we going to be a nation that welcomes people who are fleeing persecution, who are trying to build a better life for themselves? Or are we going to be a nation that exploits those very people and brings fear into their hearts? The issue of the dreamers is not only an issue related to dreamers. That's why all these faith communities have gathered here today. It is an issue that tears at the fabric of what this country is. And today, at this crossroads, if we as a community do not rise up and take action and unapologetically stand for the flight of the dreamers, then we will become a nation that abandons its heritage of being a nation built by immigrants and built for immigrants of all faiths and communities around the world. Today, we live in a nation where, as the other speakers have mentioned, that this issue is being used as another political tool, as a chess piece, to increase border security, to increase the fear that exists amongst immigrants today. But I say, as a community, we need to put a stop to this, and we need to stand out against this. Because the moment we become complicit today with the dreamers, then the next faith community and the next immigrant community will be targeted. The reality is that in the next 50 years, America will not be a predominantly Caucasian country. I think that terrifies people. I think those people who are being terrified by that notion are turning to people who they don't understand, people who use that fear in order to gain political power and gain political control. They will continue to build upon that fear. And today, people of faith, we are people who overcome fear because we believe in something higher. We believe in something greater than the challenges that are before us. I want to live in a nation where people, regardless of where they're from, are welcome into this country like I was welcome into this country. And any politician or any movement that stands against it, that is what we have to speak out against. Today, we are here for the dreamer, but we are here for something greater than that, which is the soul of this country. And I believe that the soul of this country is something that's worth fighting for and something that's worth us unifying for. I'm so grateful that so many people of faith communities are here for that today. And I'm grateful that we can stand for such a noble cause, which is standing for the dreamers and their rights. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends and colleagues. My name is Reverend Rebecca Turner, and I am the pastor of Christ Church, United Church of Christ in Maplewood. There are, by some counts, 92 unique passages in the Christian Bible that instruct me to treat the person who is born elsewhere as my own family, to welcome them into full participation in the community, to see the image of God shining through their eyes, and to recognize them as siblings in creation. Even, it says, to treat them as angels sent from God to teach me and to help me be a better person. Now, when Holy Scripture is so very consistent and says something over and over and over again, it seems good to pay attention. And so it was a matter of faith and response to God's commands that last fall, when Alex Garcia requested sanctuary from deportation, my church said, welcome. Alex was never a DACA recipient because he was not brought here as a child. He came as a young man, fleeing violence in his native land, seeking work, seeking food and shelter, and believing that once he proved that he was a good-hearted and hard-working man, that he would be welcomed as a citizen. Whatever challenges that he might have dreamed lay ahead, he was absolutely convinced that the risk of staying in his homeland was far greater than whatever risk there was before him. And Alex has proven himself for 13 years, working, loving, raising a family. But, like every DACA recipient and millions of other immigrants as well, our country does not offer him or them a pathway to citizenship. Our nation has greedily exploited the labor of immigrants and offered them nothing in return. We spout promises of a better life, but make it impossible for people to reach that goal. We extend only temporary status that keeps them under the constant threat of the whims of changing policies. We ask them to bargain for their lives by turning on their padres and their abuelos and their tios, the very people who saved their lives by bringing them to this nation. We treat immigrants not as angels, not as neighbors, not as family, but as other. The other that can be dehumanized, criminalized, and monetized. We build for-profit prisons and fill them with brown people whose only crime was to flee violence and starvation. This unethical treatment of people is a bloodstain upon our entire nation. I urge Congress to begin to right the wrongs by passing a Clean Dream Act. A Clean Dream Act will take into account all of the years that dreamers have already spent in our nation in advancing education, successful labor, and military service. A Clean Dream Act will honor the families that they have that have worked so hard and risked so much for their children to become the model community members that they are. A Clean Dream Act is the correct first step in demonstrating our gratitude for all of the ways that immigrants make America stronger and more whole. Dreamers have been forced to wait too long already. It's time to acknowledge their incredible contributions to our communities and give them a way to full citizenship.
Wow. My name is Sarah John. I I represent the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America. It is truly an honor to be here with all of you. Thank you, and thank you, Gabby and JCRC, for welcoming us. It is easy for me to feel burdened, to feel the weight of the pain and the suffering that so many people that I love, that I see, that we are called to hold with them and to walk with them. And it is easy to feel like I won't be enough, like we won't be enough, like we can't get it. But then I remember that in fact the laws and the policies that have created the situation that we are living in, that our communities are living in, that our neighbors and families and friends are living in, we made those. We wrote that. We created that. And perhaps ironically to some, that is where I sometimes find my greatest hope. Because that means that not only can we write that, we can write something else. And we can write something that is better and stronger, that is grounded in love and dignity and compassion and welcome. And we can write laws and policies and move them through our government in ways that honor the values of a diverse but unified group that is here today. And so I don't leave today with a sense of defeat. I leave today energized, inspired, encouraged, determined, and driven and fueled and ready to go. And so it is in that light that I would like to offer 3 things of where to go from here. Number 1 is that we need to go to prayer and to meditation. Not just in the silence of our houses of worship or our homes, but an active prayer, a lived prayer, an engaged prayer that calls our values into action beyond where they feel safe and comfortable and easy, because that has failed our community and failed our faiths. Number 2, we have to speak a little bit louder, or a lot louder, for me sometimes. And we have to make sure that the people we have elected, or who have been elected to represent us, hear our voices. So that looks like calling your members of Congress locally and in the DC offices. That looks like visiting, even when time and again those offices tell us no, right? But we're gonna ask again, and we'll show up again, and we'll get a little louder until we are heard. And the third thing is to show up, not just here, and not just where we are all showing up already, but to show up behind the voices of those who know this suffering too well. And I think one clear way that we can do that is to join the Missouri Dreamers Coalition this Friday, who will be participating in a statewide day of action in collaboration with the groups that Rigo mentioned previously. We will have a march and a rally on Friday at 5:30 in the Del Mar Loop. So I'm sure Rigo can talk about that after we finish here. But it's about showing up in prayer, in action, and with your voice in all the ways that we can do that. So, to conclude, I want to thank everyone for being here. I know Gabby and I made a bunch of calls and a bunch of emails and a big scramble to get folks here because that is the urgency and the crisis. Crisis is a word I think we heard here, crossroads. And it is so important that we stop waiting, that we, not for ourselves, and demand that Congress doesn't wait any longer either. The time is now. So thank you. I also want to thank the more than 20 denominations, organizations, and traditions that have shown up to support today, that have signed on to the statement that JCRC prepared. Thank you for taking this time, for taking this to heart, and for taking this out of the space today. Thank you. And so to conclude, I would like to close us in prayer. May we be blessed with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that we may live deep within our hearts. May we be blessed with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that we may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May we be blessed with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and turn their pain into joy. And may we be blessed with enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in this world, so that we can do what others claim cannot be done. Amen.
Amen. If there are any questions, so that concludes the formal press conference. If there are any questions that the press would like to ask to any of the speakers, you can feel free to do that, or also catch us individually afterwards. Okay. In the absence of public questions, we will conclude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said.